Okay. For pre-match press conference, Afghanistan versus India in Super 8, our head coach, Mr. Jonathan Trott, here for your questions. Yes, please.
Like me?
Yeah.
Plenty of T20 cricket experience with Afghanistan team, so nobody's taking them lightly. Do you take this as a compliment or is it a bit of a worry?
No, I think it's a compliment, but also earned as well. I think we've had as you see in the IPL, we've got a lot of players playing a lot of T20 cricket around the world. And now it's about putting that together as a side. I think in the past we've had some good individual players, but we need all those players playing together as a side. And we've seen that at times in the group stage. So that's really exciting going into tomorrow's game. And here at a great venue like Barbados, that only sets up well, and against a side like India, that's an added bonus.
Unbeaten India in different conditions, and how do you approach this one, especially a challenging situation? How do you look at it?
Well, I think like any game, you look at what the venue, obviously what's gone on here, and the matches from the group stage, and how to look at the wicket. You just treat it like a normal game. You don't. It's not with the title obviously being in the Super 8 and all that sort of stuff. You can straight away, talk the game up and to be and start looking for things that perhaps aren't there. Go out there, play a normal game, play our best game, which is something I still don't think we've done. We've still got our best game to come in us, where we put everything together, and hopefully that's tomorrow.
Oh, Jonathan, the last game wasn't an ideal one for your team. How do you put it behind you and take on the Super 8 stage?
Well, I think we came up against a very, very good side on their day, against Puran, who played a great knock. But what the great thing from that, I think, is that we now know, we've learned from that, if a player gets going and how we can adapt and do better against the sides in the Super 8. So the other sides are going to have players of that caliber, and who on their day can win matches like Puran did. So I think it's a good thing that it's happened, and so we know how to adapt, and we've learned from that lessons, and we're going to put that right starting tomorrow.
Jonathan, 4 night games in the group phase, and now you have a 10:30.
Sorry?
4 night games in the group phase, and now you have a 10:30 start. Do you have to do anything different at all to adjust to the 10:30 start?
No, I think day games actually suits us better. So we're quite excited to play India in a day game. Obviously, they're a very, very good side on that day. Obviously be one of the favourites, and with being favourites, obviously is added pressure for India, and hopefully we can come in, obviously perceived as underdogs, but in my mind very much not underdogs, and fully prepared and ready for the battle that confronts us tomorrow, which I'm very excited about.
Jonathan, the tournament spread over the United States and in the Caribbean, and a lot has been talked about and said about the pitches in the US and also in the Caribbean. In terms of the science of reading pitches, being able to come up that this pitch is a 120 pitch or a 180 or a belter, in terms of your assessment as a player and a coach, what are your thoughts on the whole science of pitch reading in general? How many times are we right? How many times are we wrong?
I think pitch reading in day games is a lot easier than the evenings, depending on the dew. I think dew factor sometimes comes in and makes you second guess yourself a little bit. We certainly had that in the 50 over World Cup in India, and that's always tricky. And I know in the IPL that's also a case where people are not quite sure. Is it worth runs on the board, scoreboard pressure, or a wet ball bowling? Which do you prefer to have, or which do you prefer to play against? So those are the sorts of things. So I think a day game makes it a lot clearer and a lot easier, certainly for us as well. So as terms of pitches, I think in a World Cup you obviously want an even contest between bat and ball, and I think we've had those certainly in our first couple of games. Obviously I can't speak about what happened in the States. I wasn't there, but close games always make exciting games, and that's what TV wants as well. So we've got to get the right balance, and hopefully we can do that the rest of the tournament.
Gurbaz is in great form, but do you think that you are too much dependent on the opener and little fragile middle order? Do you think it's a concern? It's not a consistent middle order?
I think obviously in T20 cricket, openers and number 3 obviously are key positions. So I think for any team they rely on the openers quite heavily. I think when you have a player like Gurbaz and the amount of talent and the way that he can take hold of games, I think any team would be reliant on him and want him to do well. So yes, he's one of our players, but there's 10 other people who are in good form and ready to go. So he's one of the leading run scorers, if not the leading run scorer. But that only counts. I'll only look at that at the end of the tournament. And if he still is, then I'll be very happy because that means he's contributed and helped win us games. So, so at the moment he's in good form, and hopefully that continues for the rest of the World Cup.
Jonathan, yeah, your spinners bowl well against most of the teams, but India teams have always seen an opening through spin to shut down India's scoring rate. So do you see spin as your spinners as an advantage that gives you maybe a leg up against them? And also the conditions here, the pitch here, is it likely to help your spinners?
I can't give you that information about the pitch. I'm sure that's against ICC regulations. But I think when you've got the spinners with the experience of T20 cricket, like we have, I think you would obviously say that's one of our strengths. But yet one of our seamers is a leading wicket take in the tournament. So I think we've seen certainly over the last couple of years a more rounded side with regards to ball and on conditions. So if it swings and seams, we can take wickets. If it spins, hopefully we can take wickets as well. You would say so, because it eliminates the dew factor, doesn't it? So if it's going to spin, it would probably help us. If it doesn't spin, we've got to bowl well as spinners. Spinners can't just rely on spin to be able to take wickets and create pressure. So that goes for both sides, I'm sure. And India have got some good spinners themselves, so it's going to be a good contest.
Jonathan, quite a few of your players play alongside and against these Indian players quite often. So how do you look at this familiarity with the team? Do you consider it as an advantage or a disadvantage? And that's an extension of the previous question, that some of your spinners against India, they haven't had the kind of success which they have against other teams. So how do you see this whole thing?
Well, I think both your questions actually linked there, because they would have played against each other so much or played with. So the first part, I think you see that in all nations, not just with India. I think because of IPL and franchises around the world. England and Australia have never had such a more friendly relationship ever. So for me, it's obviously very different from when I played, and that's how it is. So, for your second question, second part, I think that works both ways. We had 9-10 players at the IPL be able to share their experience and share their knowledge of Indian players, and they'll be able to do the same of our players. So that's the current state of world cricket. I think it's in a good position, and it's very healthy, and we're in the middle of a World Cup, and we're in Barbados, so the world's pretty good.
Here. In January, you push India to a super over. What are the things that you are taking away from that match to implement in this match in trying to win it?
What I take away from that match is we should have won it in that super over. But it also, what I take away, it shows how the gap is closing with regards to our side, the ability that our players have to be able to chase as well in T20 cricket. That was a fantastic chase in Bangalore, and unfortunately we didn't win. To have a second super over, I'm not sure that's ever happened before. So there was a lot of things to take away from that game. It would be nice to walk away with a victory, but hopefully we're saving that for tomorrow.
Yeah, Jonathan, who do you consider to be a threat in the Indian batting order? Yes, the likes of Virat and Rohit haven't got going. So who do you reckon would be a threat in the Indian batting?
I think all of them are a threat. I think you've seen the amount of T20 cricket that the side have played, vastly experienced. And every batter, I think it'd be naive to say that they're not all a threat, but I think that goes for all of our batters as well, just as much. So anybody on their day can take the game away from you. It's our job to stop that happening with bat and ball. And I know the Indian players will respect the Afghan players as well. If they don't, then I'm okay with that as well, because we certainly feel like we're here to win this game and be 1 from 1 in the Super 8s. So looking forward to how tomorrow goes.
Jonathan, just an extension to this previous question. As an opposition, the fact that Virat hasn't got too many runs in this particular tournament, does that make your planning anyway better, or are you still going by the reputation of the batsman, the fact that he's been so consistent over the years, or by his current form in this particular tournament? Does that planning make any difference to the number of runs batsmen have scored in the opposition team?
We always look at the last couple of innings and see how they're going, if there's any trends and those sorts of things when planning for opposition. So yeah, but obviously there's a history of the player as well that you take into account, and past experiences of playing against him. So, everything's taken into account, not just the recent form. But yes, obviously you do notice things if there hasn't been any form, and you look to find ways where you can sort of use that information or exploit that, and hopefully, you know, continue that sort of form.
Any other question? Finish.